Good afternoon, team. Welcome to Path to the Pros. This is our second episode, and this is brought to you, Path to the Pros is brought to you by Blueprint to Bluechip, where we build the human being underneath the athlete. I'm Thomas Rose, sports performance coach and co-founder of Blueprint to Bluechip. And with me, as always, my co-founder and CEO, Erin Charles, 25 years of Fortune 100 consulting. She's a sports mom and the woman who built Blueprint. Every week, we sit down with the people who've actually walked the road, pro athletes, coaches, agents, scouts, and the leaders inside the ecosystem that shape what the journey looks like. Because here's what we know after years of working with athletes at every level. There is no magic pill. There's no silver bullet. There's no secret sauce. And you cannot cut corners, look for shortcuts, or simply check a box. What there is a path, and every single guest on the show has walked one. Tonight, we're going to hear their stories, and welcome to Path to the Pros. Tonight, we have two incredible men on the show, and we're going to start with Braxton Wilks, as a former collegiate athlete, an attorney, co-founder of Perennial Sports Group, and INSZN. You're going to have to get into that acronym, what that stands for.
In season, yeah.
Season. That's like a license plate. I should have
yeah.
And the founder of Wilks Legacy Law. He built an entire company because he watched athletes get exploited and decided to do something about it. And next we have Brad Mayer. He is a CFP, a CEPA. Is there something that I need to know about those acronyms, Brad? Or
Yeah, it's just some designations that are some things that are important in this industry to have.
Cool. He's the senior vice president of Texas Capital Bank Private Wealth Advisors. He helps high net worth individuals, business owners, and families protect, grow, and pass on their wealth. And he understands the unique financial window an athlete is working with. Braxton, Brad, welcome to the show. We're really excited to have you guys here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Awesome. Well, you know, when we initially started this, when Erin and I started this, we were kind of just having a conversation because one of the questions that we would get inevitably by every parent, not kidding, and every athlete, what does it take to make it to the pros, whether it's the NFL, the Olympics, NBA, Major League Baseball? And that's what we said. You can't cut corners. We don't know exactly what it's going to take to get there. But before we jump into the NIL and transfer portal, I'm going to start with you, Braxton. What does it take to make it to the pro level?
I mean, like I was just listening to you as you were just, I guess, introing us into all of this and the Path to the Pros kind of segment that we're doing. And you're right. There is no one path. There's no fork in the road. If you go this way, you go to the pros. If you go that way, you don't. I mean, the thing that immediately popped in my head is Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens, two of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball right now. There's a video goes around every once in a while where they talk about how many offers they had out of high school.
Right.
And each of them had one. Tarek had a D2 offer, and Paul went to the Air Force, and that's it. So they each had two offers to go play in college baseball, and now they're the best pitchers in baseball, and they're both going to make $300 million coming out probably. So, but I just say that there is no one path, but, and I'm joking. I'm going to sound like a broken record if people have watched me on, whenever I'm on y'all's show, but it's all of those small decisions.
Right.
And it really comes down to integrity and character and who you are when no one's looking, who you are when, it would be easier to just, sleep in or to miss a practice or miss a workout, or it's all those small decisions that kind of correlate and I guess compound into a man or woman who's going to make it to professional sports. It's a bunch of just small decisions. There's no one big decision that someone made that sends them to the pros or not.
Got it. Brad, what about you? I mean, you deal with some high net worth individuals, very similar to athletes as well as CEOs. There's a long process. What's it take to make it to the pros, whether it's a CEO or an athlete?
I think it's a lot of time just spent preparing and putting in the work is the biggest thing. I think, with athletes, that's it. And with executives, they're putting in the time and the effort to be successful. It's not easy. A lot of the business owners that I work with and once, either while they're in the business or when they finally get a chance to sell the business and have a liquidity event, it's all about the amount of time and just with it. Constantly learning is another thing that's all the successful business people that I know. You don't stop learning. You're going to make mistakes. All of them will be happy to tell you what some of their greatest mistakes are, but then they learn from them and they make sure that they don't repeat those mistakes and use them to grow. And so, those are just some of the things that I feel like is a key trait of the successful individuals and business owners that I have a chance to work with.
Awesome. So one of the questions that we got right out the gate, and I want to jump right into it, is Aaron and I asked some of our guests and some of our clients, what is the percentage of athletes that you think go bankrupt after their playing career? And somebody can fact check me on this, and maybe the two of you know, but basically from what I understand, within 5 years, 78%, let's call it 80% of athletes go bankrupt within 5 years of their playing career. Braxton, why do you think that is, besides the obvious?
Yeah, I mean, besides the obvious, I think it's just the culture and the lifestyle. And obviously I'm in Austin, Texas, and we're around University of Texas events all the time. And even the, college athletic events have, Bentleys and Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces and all of that in the parking lot or at the recruiting events. And it's just kind of a culture that's been built around, look at me, and I guess built on short-term decisions and short-term rather than kind of the long-term thinking that is required to, avoid being part of that 78%.
Sure. Brad, what's your input on that, or what's your opinion, or what's your experience with dealing with athletes or individuals who go bankrupt after signing a long contract?
Yeah, I think it's not understanding how to set aside money for the future. They live in the moment and they're focused on the moment and they feel like this is going to continue forever.
Right.
And it doesn't. It stops at some point in time. Kind of not on the athlete side, but you hear a lot of times the lottery winners,
right,
who will win and then they just start spending because they feel like it's never going to go away, and it does go away. And so the ones who are successful are the ones who plan early and realize that you can't live on 100% of what your income is. That's a recipe for failure. You need to learn how to live on 25% of that. And that's how you're going to be successful long-term.
Sure. This morning, we were fortunate enough to have Braxton on to talk about basically the executive order that's going on with NIL and the transfer portal. But before that gets cemented, Braxton, let's build a little bit on that. How is the NIL going to change the landscape? I mean, right now, let's say that the executive order doesn't go into effect. How is NIL going to change the landscape of college sports?
I mean, I think we've seen a lot of how it's changed the landscape of college sports over the past 5 years. And it's going to kind of continue. I think I talked about this today, but kind of the most recent numbers it's showing for college men's basketball, the portal obviously is ongoing right now. I think the kind of fair market value of what these guys are being offered is up 65% from even last year. So I think that's going to continue, and it's going to continue until someone, until a university, a coach, an AD says there is no more money. But college sports is obviously a big money maker, especially the revenue sports like basketball and football. And they're going to keep trying to do whatever they can to be successful on the field or on the court. I think we're eventually going to see some, well, at least I hope we're going to see some schools that also start taking more long-term approaches. I know one of the knock has been that just development has gone away, because if you can't help me win today, you're just going to have to transfer somewhere else.
Sure.
And if kind of what we're saying, if the transfer portal, I mean, if the executive order takes effect, and is not legally challenged or anything like that, whether it's Congress acts or the NCAA establishes rules, we would be back to essentially a one-time transfer policy. And obviously there are legal implication problems with that. But if that is the case, we're going to start seeing maybe some more long-term approaches get adopted by some of these schools. And so the NIL market might slow down a little bit because, hey, instead of paying you $1 million, we know you're not going to help us this year, but 2 years from now, we'll pay you 200,000. Then 2 years from now, you might be, our starting point guard or our starting shooting guard or whatever it is.
Awesome. Brad, I believe you're in Austin as well. I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure your wealth management firm has had discussions about NIL at UT. UT is one of the top 5 schools, and especially we all know UT right now with Arch Manning. What are some of the discussions you guys have at your firm regarding NIL and protecting athletes?
I think it's important to help them plan for the future. What we do in our firm is planning is a key component of that. So having those discussions early on with the athletes and just getting, helping educate them. That's such a key component of what we're doing is helping to educate individuals, educate athletes on how this money can last them for a lifetime, and helping them understand taxes. Everybody has to pay taxes, and the way that an athlete is taxed is different than an employee at a company, because not only do you have the income taxes that are there, the employment taxes. If you're an employee at a company, you pay half, your employer pays half. When you're an NIL athlete, you're responsible for all of that. And then if you're in a state that has a state income tax, you're responsible for that too. So, our recommendation to start is you've got 3 different buckets. That first bucket is taxes, and you need to set aside 40% of whatever that income is to prepare for taxes.
Wow.
And a lot of them, they hear that number and it's a shock to them, because they think, I signed $1 million deal. I've got $1 million that I can go spend right now. And no, you don't. Even if you don't save anything or invest anything, the government's still going to take their share of it. And then what happens in year 2 for those athletes is once the government realizes that you are a self-employed individual who doesn't have withholding taxes, when you file your taxes the next year, they're expecting you to pay quarterly estimated taxes, and they're going to, get that from you. So it's something that you can't get away from. And I think, that piece of it is one of the biggest aha moments for the athletes when they realize that, this check isn't what I thought it was. Because a lot of us, we had a job in high school. And so, we saw that some in high. You get your first paycheck and you're like, who's this FICA guy and why is he taking money out of my paycheck? But these athletes, they've been training to get to where they are. So they haven't necessarily had a job because they just don't have the time. They're playing their sport. When they're not playing their sport, they're getting training for their sport. And this is the first time they've seen that. So I think just, that education piece and starting with the taxes, and then, we move on to helping them understand how money can grow over time is another key piece that we like to talk to them about.
Awesome. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to get into some questions. We filtered through some questions from athletes, parents, coaches, and some professionals. Brad, I'm going to go back to you because this is a question from a woman, from Jennifer. She's the mom of a D1 linebacker. Brad, my son is projected to go in the 3rd round next year or in this draft. We have no idea what to do financially to prepare. Where should we start? Is there a checklist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the first thing you want to do is make sure you're working with somebody who is reputable in the industry. There are a lot of great people in this industry, but there are also some people who try and skirt around and offer themselves up to be experts, and they're not. So, I would say when you're researching, trying to find somebody, there's a number of great resources out there. The first one I'd recommend is going to a website called finra.org, NRA, and it's where anybody who is an investment advisor, financial advisor, they have to register with FINRA. So you can go on that website, you can type in an individual's name, and you can see, are they registered, where they work, what their work history is, and if there's been any complaints ever filed against them. And that is all public knowledge. So that's a great first place to start. And then from there, you can talk to them about how they manage money, what their philosophies are, what kind of strategies they use. But the first thing I would do is make sure when you do your research, whoever you end up talking to is somebody that you have looked up information and made sure that they represent themselves to be.
Awesome question, Jennifer. My first suggestion is get Brad's information in the show notes and reach out to him. So, Braxton, this is a question for you. We have Marcus, who's a 19-year-old college wide receiver. How do I know if someone's coming to me saying they want to represent me actually has my best interest at heart? Like, what are the red flags I should be looking for right now before I even get into the league?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question. And it's honestly not something that's just, a question for your agent or someone, a financial advisor like Brad or someone like that. It's a question that comes up just throughout life is, hey, how do I know this guy, this woman is telling the truth? Actually, is not just full-faced lying to me or, yeah. So I think some of the red flags first is, if you are already kind of looking at or have been talking to, an agent, a representative, an advisor who has already sent their representation agreement, the kind of the provisions I would start at are what is the percentage of commission, and for a wide receiver who would be playing in the NFL. The playing contracts, as they're defined by the NFLPA, agents can only receive 3%, or like the maximum they can receive is 3% of that. And that's kind of the industry standard. For everything else, kind of the marketing and all of that, the industry standard is between 10, 15, 20%, normally 15, 20%. And those are for marketing contracts like when Patrick Mahomes represents Heinz ketchup or something. And so I would first look at that and see, all right, well, are they actually, abiding by those standards? I would also look at, hey, what is the notice period required for me to fire my agent or that representative? And honestly, the most of the players associations have between like a 15 and 90-day written notice. If it's anything more than 30 days, that's a huge red flag for me. Okay. I mean, honestly, for me, I normally, ours is, and our agreement is 15, but I also tell people like, hey, if you want to fire me, like, just tell me. Like, it's not, we're never gonna say like, nope, you can't fire me. You got to wait 30 days. Right. Like, yeah, fire me. That's okay. Hopefully our relationship is great and that never comes up. But so those are two red flags just in the representation agreement. I would also say, hey, if someone is promising you things that sound too good to be true, and this is, like I said, probably just general rule, but if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
And lastly, it seems like, and there's a bunch of things. The reason I'm all over the place is all of these things are just popping in my head that I've seen as red flags. But I think one of the big ones is just understanding what an agent should be doing. And when an agent is just selling you on their contacts, like, hey, I know every coach in the industry.
Right.
That's a big red flag to me, because yes, that is part of it as an agent, but there's so much more that needs to be done. Especially when you're representing a 19-year-old wide receiver as an agent, I'm not just calling up coaches to make sure you're okay. I'm advising you on, your career, and let's help you get to the NFL. I'm making sure that you're talking to people like Brad, and we're educating you on your financial planning and all of that. You're legally protected. We're reviewing your contracts, all of that. And that's why probably like the reviewing contract piece, general rule of thumb is if someone is an attorney as an agent, they may not have your best interest at heart, but they're probably at least qualified. Yeah, there's a bunch of red flags, and I'm sure as we keep talking, more things will pop into my head. But those are kind of the ones that kind of always seem to come up more often than not.
Yep. Brad, I'm going to throw this one out to you. This is from Mike. He's a dad of a sophomore running back. My kid just got his first NIL deal, $8,000 from a local car dealership. He's never had money like this before. What should he do with it right now? What are the tax implications we probably don't know about? You touched on it earlier.
Yeah. And I think, we kind of tell the athletes, there's 3 buckets that we talk about. The first one is taxes, and set that aside. That's 40%. The next bucket that we talk about is savings and investment. And we also put that number at 40% as well. And then the third bucket is your spending money. And that's 20%. And people ask, that 40%, that seems like a lot of money to set aside for savings and investment. And, part of it is you want to have that emergency fund. Everybody should have emergency fund, including that student athlete. So that's a part of it. But when you look at long-term growth, and that's part of this education, there's something called the rule of 72. And for people who haven't heard of that, what it is it's a number that's come up, and it helps you understand how quickly you can double your money. And what happens is you take 72, you divide that by whatever the return is on your investment, and that tells you how many years it takes to double your money. So if you're investing in a stock portfolio, S&P 500 index fund, pretty common investment vehicle, it's about an 8% average annual return. So 72 divided by 8 equals 9, which means every 9 years your money doubles. I did the math. I won't bore everybody with it, but basically what that says is that if at age 22 you had $100,000 that you've been able to set aside in an investment portfolio, that doubles every 9 years. At age 67, which is the current retirement age, according to the federal government, when you can get full Social Security, that would be $3.2 million.
Wow.
So whatever money you've made after you finished college, none of that is counting in that. That's just setting that money aside. Now, a lot of people, maybe they can't wait that long. But, even if you wait, 100, 9 years is 200, another 9 years is 400, another 9 years is 800. So you're looking, 25, 30 years out, that could be almost $1 million. So maybe there's something you want to do at that point in time. But I think just being able to show that to the athletes and help them understand, not everybody's going to do that, but that's a great goal to say, let these earnings for those 2, 3, 4, or if the 5 for 5 gets past 5 years, that sets you up for life. And I just said 100,000. You add another zero to the starting point, you add another zero to the ending point. So 100,000 would be 3 a million would be 32 million.
Holy smoke.
So it's just, when you can lay that out, I think it helps people really understand what is possible with this money.
No doubt. Question comes from a Division I position coach. My guys trust me more than they trust most people in their life. What do I need to know so I can point them in the right direction when it comes to representation without crossing any NCAA lines?
So I guess first thing that I would say, and this is kind of another red flag that popped into my head, but anytime, there's an agent or a representative that says they are, like NIL certified or anything like that, that's generally a red flag. But I think it's good to kind of, my rule of thumb is like for Brad, and I'm lucky enough to have known him for a while. My rule of thumb when I'm telling all our guys to go to someone, hey, either if it's another agent or if they are, or a advisor, financial planner, anything like that, accountant, it's who would I trust? Right. And so I think it's important when you are recommending they go talk to someone that, you have the opportunity to talk to them first, meaning whoever you're going to recommend. And I think it's important to understand, like, hey, because again, I could say things, anyone could say things that they don't truly mean or don't truly believe. But I think when you're talking to someone, after a while, most of us, it feels like, can kind of figure out if someone is genuine or if someone is just trying to get in someone else's pocket or something. And I think the more genuine people that are in the industry, the better it's going to be for athletes in general. And the easier it is for a position coach to say, hey, go talk to Brad, go talk to Braxton, go talk to Aaron and Thomas,
Sure. Brad, this is for you. James, 28 years old, recently retired from minor league baseball. I never made it to the pros, but I spent 6 years in the minors. Nobody ever talked to me about building wealth during that time. Is it too late for guys like me, or is there still a path that I could carve out?
It's never too late to start. You can start at any point in time, and there are a number of different investment vehicles to use once you start. When you are employed, a lot of companies offer retirement vehicles, especially 401k plans that are tax advantage. So that's going to help you grow it. But it's never too late. And what's interesting is that when we talk to clients about how aggressive, how conservative should I be, and a lot of people think, hey, I'm too far along. I can't put enough in. I can't get there. There are ways to get there, and it can be. Sometimes it's it comes down to spending issues along with saving issues. But I would say find somebody who is a reputable financial advisor and have the conversation with them, because almost everyone that I know in this business is in it because they want to help people be successful, and they will have that conversation. They will help you develop a plan, and then you can just execute the plan similar. And I think athletes, one of the benefits they have is that they have to execute a plan to be successful in their athletic career. And when it comes to investing and saving money, it's the exact same way. You've got a plan, put the plan in place, and execute that plan just like you did when you were an athlete full time.
Right on. We've got Rachel. She's in her second year of law school. Braxton, where does the line get drawn between what a sports agent handles and what an attorney handles? And should athletes have both, or is there one that overlaps that makes one unnecessary?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, the line overlaps a whole lot when you're an agent. You do a lot of things that is really legal work when you're reviewing contracts and negotiating those provisions in contracts and things like that, and you're advising on, how to protect yourself and your interests and all of those things. That, really, when you get down to it, is legal work. And there are a lot of agencies, sports agencies, that will have, if the agent isn't an attorney, they would have an attorney or a lawyer kind of on staff that would look over all of that stuff.
Got it.
I think there's a lot of overlap. I think the best agents, and this isn't necessarily this is more just a general rule, but most of the best agents in baseball and football and basketball, all of that, do happen to be attorneys. And I think it's just because so much of it is getting into the legal details of provisions of contracts and all of that. But it is also a reputation and a relationship business. And so there are some times where athletes will need, a separate attorney. And before I started PSG, that's kind of one of the things I was doing, which would be, we would help, whether it's high net worth individuals, whether they're athletes or not, we would help them on the legal side to preserve their wealth and protect themselves and all of that. And so there are some times where an athlete does need to hire an attorney or a specific attorney. One of the things that we do at PSG is, because of just the background that I have, that thanks to kind of God's plan overlooking me, I had all of these things that helped me to help my athletes and be better prepared and more experienced to actually advise my athletes. That's something that we try to do, where we can kind of do all of the legal work that an athlete might have to go pay thousands of dollars to a law firm to do. We can all do that, in-house for the same commission that we would be doing if we weren't doing that legal work. So it's just another kind of, for us at PSG, a value add that we can provide our clients.
Got it. I think this next question is probably for both of you. We've got Lisa. She's an athletic director at a strong Division II school. We have close to a dozen athletes that are making comfortable 5 to 6 figure NIL deals, not because of their athletic ability, but because of their social media presence. What resources or conversations should we bring to our school for the student athletes and their families? Because we're not equipped for this, and our kids are walking in blind.
I'll go ahead, Braxton.
Okay, no, I was going to say, one of the things is, I'm always happy to, Brad and I can always join. And if they really need us, I'm sure both of us can find time to talk about it. But I think some of the things that popped into my head originally are LLCs and setting up a business for them, and kind of using that structure to protect themselves, to protect their assets, to kind of a plan for taxes and all of those things. And I'm sure Brad's going to get more into the details of all of that, but those are the things that popped into my head initially.
Yeah, I would agree that LLC is important, because from a tax standpoint, you can get some benefits if you establish an LLC and the money comes into the LLC, and then you can get paid as an employee of the LLC or the business. So there's some things that you can do there. You would want to talk to, an accountant to walk you through all of that. But that LLC, along with the protection that Braxton talked about, there is a financial element to that as well that's possible. And then, like anybody else that we've talked about, once again, it's understanding that you can't spend all of that money, because there are tax implications that are coming. And, potentially, depending on, the social media world can be very fickle. And one day you may be bringing in $10,000 a week, and the next week something has happened and you're now not bringing in anything. And so that setting that aside and preparing for what could happen. And then if that happens, if you do have a lull, you haven't created a lifestyle that now you have to dramatically change. You've got a lifestyle that can handle some of those ebbs and flows. And I do think that is a different scenario than the athlete, because the athlete has, an NIL is a contract that they're signing that they know it's for that specific time period, and they're going to get that money in that time period. And so for these athletes that are using social media as a way to generate revenue, they do need to prepare differently. And, as Braxton said, I think both of us would be happy to visit more on that and talk about that. But that planning becomes even more important when your income is variable, similar to somebody in the business world. If you're a salesperson, if you're people are interest rates are low, you're selling a bunch of houses, you're doing great. All of a sudden the economy turns around and people aren't buying houses anymore, and your income drops, and you need to have been prepared for how to handle those ebbs and flows. And I think the student athletes who are making money off of social need to be prepared very similar to that.
Got it. Braxton, my dad keeps telling me, I'm sorry, this is Darius. He's 17. He's a highly recruited quarterback. My dad keeps telling me not to sign anything without a lawyer. Is he right? And if so, how young is too young to start having these conversations?
Yes. I mean, general rule, yes. Don't sign anything, especially when, a highly recruited quarterback, like we're looking at things that could be very, impactful on not just your college career, but the rest of your life. I mean, I've seen some of these deals, from the university side, kind of a rev share deal or something like that, that is really restrictive, terrible liquidated damages clauses, things like that, that really, are not in the athlete's best interest. But I've also seen terrible, agent athlete representation agreements, or the agent's taking 45% of earnings from the athlete, or the agent retains NIL rights at the athlete's death. Like I've seen these terrible things. And so, yeah, general rule, get an attorney to look it over. At the end of the day, and I tell people this, I may give away too much business, but even if you don't sign with me and you're looking at this and you don't understand what these provisions mean, I know Aaron and Thomas will put my contact info in the notes and all of that. Reach out to me and just hey, I already have an agent, but I need an attorney to look over this real quick. Just make sure I'm not signing away my rights. Or anything like that. Like, I'm happy to do that because I've seen so many kids exploited, so many bad things that there's some stories I could definitely tell just from what I've seen personally. And then what I've heard, it's even worse. So yeah, I think general rule, always have an attorney look it over. If you don't have an attorney or don't want to hire one and need someone to look over something quick, I'm happy to do it as well.
Right on. We've got Kevin. He's 34, former college athlete, now in finance. Looking back, I wish I had someone like the two of you when I was playing. What's the one conversation you wish every athlete had at 18 that almost none of them are having?
I would say the conversation of, what's going to happen when this is over, and prepping for the end. Everybody thinks that when they're an athlete, when you start as a 5-year-old, I'm going to be a professional athlete and I'm going to do all of this. And some people are lucky enough that they can still have that dream at 18 and then at 22. But at some point in time, it ends. And so having that conversation early on about when this is over, what do you want that to look like? And that can be financially, but it can also be professionally. There's a lot of things that even I think as a college athlete now, the opportunities to make connections are so much bigger than they were in the past. In the past, nobody really cared about you until you got to the pros. But now in college, the boosters are involved because they are helping support this. And if you have an opportunity to get introduced to network with one of these boosters who is helping fund the NIL program, that is something that can carry you on for the rest of your life outside of graduation. Here Braxton was talking about living in Austin, and there are a number of UT athletes who are very successful in the city of Austin, whether it be financial services, real estate is a huge thing, even some of the private equity, because of the connections that they made when they were a college student. And so taking advantage of that now while you're a student is something that I would just highly recommend to every college athlete, because you're never going to have these connections and these opportunities the way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that the really interesting thing about being an athlete is we all know it ends. It's kind of like when I was really like focusing on trust and estates, I would always talk about we all need estate planning stuff because we all are going to die, and it's hard to talk about and we don't want to think about it, but we all will. It's same thing for an athlete. You don't want to think about it, but at some point you're going to hang up the cleats and you're going to, put the shoes away, put the glove away, put the ball away, and get on with, real life. And it's so important at 18 years old to understand that and to really think about that, not just for kind of what Brad is saying about, trying to make connections and set yourself up for afterwards and do all of that, but also, I think really just like mentally, emotionally, it's incredibly important to have an identity in your own head of who you are beyond the sport. Because if you're basing who you are and your self-worth and whether you're, euphoric and full of joy, or you are, depressed and down in the dumps based on who you like, the fact that you're a football player or basketball or baseball player, and whether or not you're playing well, all of that, it's hard. And it makes, honestly, performing in sports even harder. So that's just something at 18. It's so hard because, like you said, from 4 or 5 years old until, 18, and then obviously beyond, you've been a baseball player, a football player, a quarterback, whatever it is. And it's really easy to think of yourself as that. And hey, I am a quarterback, and I'm a 4-star quarterback going to Texas. But it's so important to at 18, and I wish people had told me this and talked to me about this, but not just having your identity in something other than sports, but something that's bigger than yourself. And for me, obviously, and I know Thomas and Aaron, we've all talked about this. I'm a Christian, so that's my faith and being a follower of Christ. But you need to find something that's bigger than yourself, because it's so hard to compete and perform well, and just get through it and thrive and all of that if you're based on how well you're doing on the field, because that's going to go up and down. Sports are about failure.
Yep.
And I'll follow up real quick on that. I work a lot with business owners, and there's been surveys that have done that say 75% of business owners who sell their business, a year later, they are unhappy. And they're not unhappy because they didn't get enough money for it. They're unhappy because they didn't know what they were going to do afterwards. And so this isn't just an athlete thing. This is many successful people at some point, when it ends, what do I do now? This is who I was. And what do I do now? It's just that athletes have that happen at 30, 35, 40 instead of 60 or 65.
No doubt. I guess this question is definitely for both of you. Is the system, and when I say the system, the NCAA, actually set up to protect athletes or to protect the people around the athletes? We'll start with you, Braxton, on the legal side, and we'll go to the financial side with Brad.
I mean, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but so I'll preface that. But you look at, we talked about obviously the executive order today and the NCAA and their response to that and everything. When you really look at who, all these lawsuits with the NCAA are saying, hey, you're not protecting the athletes, you're not thinking about the athletes. And like, I know there's an NCAA lawyer somewhere that just wants to say, well, of course we're not. Like we're protecting member institutions.
Yeah.
That's we're an association. We care about the University of Texas and Baylor and wherever. We don't, but they can't say that, of course. So yeah, I mean, I think the system, it's definitely may not be against athletes, but it's not for athletes. And you kind of have to know that going in. There's no real, the onus is not really on, anyone, whether it's the university or the NCAA or anyone to, properly educate kids about financial planning and financial literacy and, paying taxes and their legal interests and how to protect them and safeguard their interests and all of that. The system really isn't set up to have, any one entity or one person in the industry that is doing that, at least on the university side. And so that's why it's important for athletes to take control of their own destiny and their own legacy and take all of these conversations and these resources seriously. Yep. But yeah, I don't want to say too much about, I don't want to get in trouble, but
everybody's always looking out for their own best interest.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I would say from a financial standpoint, clearly it's better for athletes than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because they can, I say they can get compensated. They can get compensated above the table now. I think they could always get compensated, but now it's legal and you can get compensated above the table. But you still got
worry about taxes, then, Brad.
Well, yeah, that cash in the McDonald's bag, you didn't have to pay taxes on that.
The government.
Well, I think you were supposed to. You just right. No one reported it, but you were supposed to. But yeah.
Sure. But also when you look at that, I think that the individuals who are contributing to this, they're not all doing it out of the goodness of their heart. There's some things that they want to get out of it. For example, you look at some of the tax benefits, the way that they've got some of these collectives set up, and is it a tax deductible contribution? Is it not? So, they've got some things set up for them, but I do think it is better. And I hope that the athletes who are benefiting from this really are getting a chance to benefit long term. I mean, even if you're somebody who is just getting, $25,000 on top of everything else, because that's what, the school's budgeted for you and your program, that's still something that you weren't getting before. And it can help you, both now and in the future. So I just hope that, the athletes have a chance and get the opportunity to benefit from this now and from this in the future. And as Braxton said, things are going to change. There will be more guardrails put up, and hopefully people who have the right intent and their hearts in the right place are going to be the ones putting up these guardrails to provide that extra protection and to provide that support for these student athletes so that, they can take advantage of these great opportunities they have.
Awesome. We've got a mom who has two highly recruited high school athletes. Her son is a basketball player and her daughter is a softball player. What type of credentials should we be looking for as far as a financial advisor or as far as an attorney or an agent? We'll start with you, Brad. What type of credentials should this mom or family be looking for?
Yep. So I think a financial advisor, the first thing you want to look for is go on that FINRA website, see if they're registered. Then
Right.
you want to see what other certifications do they have and licenses do they have. So there's certain licenses that as an investment professional you can obtain. There's different numbers, a series 7, a series 65, a series 66. Those are things that are credentials that say you've taken an additional step. Then above that, there are other certifications. So as I said, I've got a certified financial planner designation, and to get that, I had to take some, classes and had to take exams and have to do continuing education. There's also a chartered financial analyst, a CFA designation that is similar to that. It's more on the investing side, but it's the same thing. You want to see people who have gone above minimum that they have to do to be able to be in the field that they're in. And so, all of that stuff is available on the FINRA website. If whatever, whoever they work for, if they're a sole proprietor or if they work for a group or they work for a firm, that information is going to be available. So that would be my recommendation is do that research and make sure you're finding somebody who has those registrations and those certifications that show they've taken those extra steps to be an advisor.
Awesome. Brad, Braxton, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, for an attorney, an agent that you're looking for, if it's just a representative, an agent, like I think it's not necessarily a must, but it's a big recommendation is that your agent is an attorney and someone who has gone through that, passed the bar, practiced. I don't know what it is about law school, but when you go through law school, it changes the way you think and read things, and it just does. And so that's just because so much of the work that you do as an agent is legal work. I think you should also kind of be looking at certifications. If it's an NBA player, NBA PA certification, NFL PA certification, all of that. The one kind of caveat to that I would say is, and this again is not everyone, it's not a general thing, but most of the agents that I've dealt with that have kind of started out as pro agents over the past 20 years and have come down, it's a much different ballgame representing college kids than it is professionals. And it's just because of the education aspect and the fact that you're 18, 19 years old and you have no idea how to do any of this stuff versus a 25-year-old who has gone through it and is a professional. And it's definitely, there's the maturity aspect to it and all of that. So I'm not saying that like the NFLPA is, certification is a knock against someone or anything like that. It's just, it's not necessarily the end all be all, just like an attorney isn't. The other certification that, isn't going to end up on like at the end of someone's name or anything like that, but I think is important is, hey, their other clients. Are they going to let you talk to their other clients? Because, that's something that's important. For a long time, for the past few years, it seemed like there are some agencies and some agents that their goal is to sign as many kids as they can. And it is quantity over quality. And, I'll talk to some of the kids and they'll say like, hey, when did you talk to your agent last time? And it's like, well, when I signed eight months ago, a year ago, whatever. And, then the negotiation revenue share comes up and all of a sudden he's getting texts again. But, it's like, hey, what's the relationship like with their other clients and other athletes they represent and all of that. And then kind of word of mouth, kind of going back to the position coach that you had brought up, Thomas. I think it's, when you have people that maybe they have no idea how you are as an agent, whether or not you're a good agent or bad agent, but they can attest for who you are as a person or your character, integrity, or anything like that. Those are the people that, when you get those recommendations, take them seriously. And most people do.
Awesome. We got Jeff. We'll close it out with this one. You always have one of these characters in every crowd. This is Jeff from Houston. Brad, what's the dumbest thing a pro athlete has ever done with their money that you could tell us about? You don't need to tell us names. I just want to know what not to do.
I think I'll be a little bit more generic here, but one of the things that I see is hey, this is my buddy who I grew up with, and he's got this can't miss opportunity that I'm going to go invest in. And if it's truly a can't miss opportunity, he's got somebody beside you that he can go to who wants to invest in it. And so, I think that's one of the things. And that's, when we talk about why you would get a financial advisor, one of the reasons you get a financial advisor is I can be your no person.
Right.
So if somebody's coming to you, if a friend or relative is coming to you and say, Brad, they're pounding my door down. They want me to do this. They want me to invest in this. I don't know if I should. I'm your advisor. Let me be the bad guy.
Right.
Let me take a look at it and say, no, this isn't in your best interest. But, I think that's the one thing that I would say is just the friend you grew up with, the family member who says, I need you to invest in this, and it's a can't miss opportunity. And a year later, the money's gone.
Yeah. Braxton, without naming names, also Jeff from Houston. Braxton, without naming names, what's the worst thing you've ever seen an agent do to an athlete? Because I feel like the real stories never really come out.
Yeah, I mean, the real stories don't, and you'll every once in a while hear one side or the other. One of the bad stories I didn't personally witness, but I was told this. It's definitely hearsay evidence, wouldn't go in court, but it was an athlete, female athlete who had a big social media presence, and she transferred to a school, and she said, hey, this guy had approached me. He's my agent. And he started asking her to, like, hey, take this picture, maybe a little less clothed than you were, and all of that. And the athlete went to the university and the AD and was like, hey, this is weird. Like, I don't know. And they started looking, and he was an OnlyFans agent. He represented people, and and that was his thing, was kind of get people that I guess had big social media followings and send them that way, and get them signed up with that website or whatever. And so that one always sticks in my head. I mean, there's others. I know one that pops into my head is an agent was getting paid directly by the school and the NIL collective rather than the athlete.
Oh, wow.
And the athlete at one point asked his coach towards the end of the season, towards the end of the school year, hey, like, where's my money? And they were kind of like, what? We paid you whatever, $400,000 already. And the bank account that had been given to the university and the collective and all of that was the agent's, and he was in the wind. He deuces. So I've heard a lot of bad stories, and that was one of the things that the longer I got into this, the more I was like, that's why God put me here. That's, I followed God to start PSG, and that was like a leap of faith for me. And it was more than me just wanting to do this. It's, hey, like, we need people that are going to combat all of those bad actors that are doing it. So I've heard a lot of rough stories, and some that probably we can't talk about on air.
Yeah. Well, Aaron,
the locker room from last night. We don't talk about the locker room of the boys.
Well, Aaron, if Blueprint doesn't work out, you can always get your OnlyFans agent there. You just have to keep that. Hey, Brad and Braxton, before we close out, what we always like to do is we always like to open up the floor. Brad, we're going to start with you. one, if there isn't, if there's something we didn't touch on that you think is important for our audience to hear, definitely share that. And also, where can our audience get in contact with you, whether that's a website or an email or anything like that? And Braxton, I'll ask you the same thing, but we'll start with you, Brad, to close this out.
Yeah, no, and Thomas and Aaron, just thank you again for the opportunity to be on here. Really enjoyed it, and look forward to staying in contact with you guys. I think just focusing on finding somebody who's going to put your best interest at heart, and then making sure that you've got a plan in place are the biggest things. And if you do that, and if you can follow that guidance and follow those plans that have been put in place for you, you're going to have a chance to have whatever money you're making in NIL when you're in college. Use that for the rest of your life. There's going to be a chance for that money to grow and use it for a lot more in the future. So that's just kind of what I'd want to close with is that piece of advice. I am as you said, a private client advisor. I work with Texas Capital in Austin, Texas. I do have the ability to work anywhere across the country to people, and am more than happy, as I know Braxton is too, which is one of the reasons why I think we really connected. Talk to anybody about anything. If they have a question about finances and just, hey, what do I do? Or you talk to me about this website and I look this person up and I think they're okay. Happy to provide any advice and insight there. So always available for that. Best way to contact me is via email, and it's brad.mayer, which is MAYER @texascapital.com. And if they want to reach out there, they can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. And so, can always shoot me a message there. And I check that regularly, and I'm happy to follow up there as well.
Awesome. Braxton.
Yes. Yeah, no, Brad kind of, not that he stole my words, but he hit the nail on the head. One of the things that is exciting about this current era of college sports and the NIL era and all of this that has gone on over the past 5 years and continues to grow is that even earlier in athletics and athletes earning window opens up, meaning before NIL you had, from age 23, 24 to whenever you were done. If you were Tom Brady, I guess it's 45, but for most people it was 27 or 28. So you had a tiny window to earn money as an athlete, and then you had the rest of your life to continue to earn money doing something else. The cool thing is at 18 years old, you can kind of open that window and start making money. And not only is it 18 years old, it's 18 years old. You have school paid for, tuition, if you want room and board, all of those things paid for. And it could be, something where you really start that rule of 72 Brad was talking about a lot earlier, and that window is open a lot earlier. And I tell our guys this all the time, but for our guys and for most athletes, this is life-changing money that is in front of them. And our job, my job, Brad's job, is to make sure that it actually changes their life and changes their life for the better and for, the future and for long term. And so that's what, I'm passionate about is making sure that whether you make it to the NFL or not, the MLB or not, you, after 4 or 5 years of playing college sports, you have a better life trajectory than you would have if you hadn't played sports and hadn't, been advised by us. So that's, one thing that I just wanted to touch on briefly. Our company is called Perennial Sports Group. You can find us at perennialsportsgroup.com. You can find me at Braxton L. Wilks on X or Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Perennial Sports Group is same thing, just Perennial Sports Group or Perennial SG on X and Instagram, and even we have a TikTok, though I'm not dancing or anything like that. And maybe I'll have to, but And then if you just anyone has questions, if whether it's a question about what we do at PSG or what I should be looking for, other red flags, other stories that I can't talk about on air, anything, it's Braxton at perennialsportsgroup.com is my email. And so you can reach me there, email me, and then we'll schedule a call. And like Brad said, I'm willing to talk to anyone and just help out in any way I can.
Awesome. Aaron, do you have any parting thoughts?
I just want to thank Brad and Braxton for your infinite wisdom, your knowledge. It's at Blueprint to Bluechip. We want to surround ourselves with high quality, high integrity individuals, and you two are in our circle of people that we trust, that we recommend. And so we are just so grateful as we build this. It's going to take all of us to really support this next generation of athletes. And so we're just eternally grateful. So I just want to thank you both. As I was listening, I didn't ask a lot of the questions. I was taking a lot of notes because they're so valuable. So please, I'm a sports mom. Listen, reach out. The way you're going to be successful is knowledge and to seek it out. And that's what we'll provide.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you. And Brad, Braxton, thank you for being honest and being real and giving our athletes something worth holding on to. And to everyone watching, we hope you heard something tonight that changes how you show up tomorrow. We're going to be back next Thursday, and we're doing this every Thursday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time right here live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Until then, stay off the shortcuts, stay on the path, and remember why you started and what you started. This is Blueprint to Bluechip. We build the human being underneath the athlete. We'll see you next week.